Hello and thanks for tuning in to another video here on Keep Running. I am your host BK, and in today's video we're going to be talking about tracking. What type of data points do we capture? Oftentimes we either capture distance in the form of kilometers or miles, or some people like to capture the amount of time that they run. Both are acceptable approaches. You just have to decide which one is a better fit for you, and then how do you capture it? Where do you capture it? So anyway, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to switch cameras here in a minute, and we'll take a look at some of the various methods I've used, both in a personal spreadsheet or maybe even a paper printed training log of sorts, or there's many online resources that people use as well. I'll show you a couple that I'm using. And I'd be really curious, if you use some sort of tracking log today, please go ahead and put in the comments and share with the rest of us what you use to track your mileage. What do you track? Do you track mileage or do you track time? I'd also be interested in hearing that. And if you like the content that you find in this video, please consider liking the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you subscribe. And if you'd like to receive notices of future videos when they get posted, go ahead and click the bell, and let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is an Excel spreadsheet that I created that I've been using for 20 some years. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll tell you how you can get a free copy of a template if you have Excel or you want to use Google Sheets or something like that to play around with this and use for your own tracking. You're more than welcome to do that. So this is a spreadsheet, like I said, I've been using for quite a while. I started back in 1998, and it's kind of changed a little bit, but for the most part it has stayed the same. And as we talk about tracking, some of the data points that we're capturing here is what is my mileage for the day. You can see here for 2021 as we get started. I've captured the first 6 runs of the year here. You'll see I'm tracking how many runs per month. I'm calculating the weekly mileage, monthly mileage, and then a cumulative that may not be as obvious to you. So maybe we switch over here to 2020. You'll see here this is obviously more filled out. So you'll see the trending here. This right here will show you kind of how it's trended. One of the advantages of tracking information like this is you can go back and evaluate how's your running going, how are you progressing, what are you learning about your running. And the first 6 months of last year were pretty typical. Not a lot of mileage. Quite honestly, the last decade, as I mentioned in that video, has been pretty challenging. I've been running for over 3.5 decades, and quite honestly, running too hard during most of that. And so I've been very injury prone the past 10 years, and that sometimes you lose motivation, and that shows in the data. So that's one way I can evaluate. But in the summer last year, I kind of changed up my my training approach, and it really rejuvenated my running. And in the last 6 months of the year, you can see here I started right around 300. I got to 1,000, so I did 700 miles in the last 6 months. Some of the other things that I track on here is in the yellow highlights here. This is time when I was sick or injured, and I kind of just put a little note down here for myself. And I think this speaks to one of the advantages of a spreadsheet, or using a notebook, or maybe a paper and pencil type of approach with one of a variety of different training logs that you can purchase out there or even create for yourself, is that you can really customize it to your specific needs and what you'd like to get out of it. And so this is one of the things that I find useful when I go back to evaluate. Perhaps one of the things that I could learn from it is looking at the data leading up to some of these injuries, depending on the nature of them, and see if there was something in my training that led to it that maybe I need to evaluate going forward to reduce the amount of injuries. Some of the other things, data points that I capture in here to, again, measure and evaluate my running is every Saturday morning when I get up before I go on my long run, I take my weight and I record it. One of the things that I like about this approach of doing it at the same time every week is part of my running routine, that is before my long run, is it's usually under the similar circumstances, and it's not every day. I'm not micromanaging it, but I'm looking for patterns and trending. Sometimes I'm looking at that to see, as my mileage increases, how's that affecting my weight, or if I've been away from running for a while, or I've had to cut back or injure or whatever, I can kind of see patterns and trending there. So again, I just want to illustrate that capturing data like this in a training log can be a very valuable tool to you as a runner. I'm not going to go into a lot more detail as far as like the blue highlights here, or some of the other highlights here. I'll do that in a future video when I walk through my training plan that I put together for one of the races that I'm training for this year. So I'll come back to that. Some of the other things that you can do with the spreadsheet is I've created this little summary over here where I can put in my runs for the week, and it will give me just weekly information, like how far I ran. I can calculate that on the other sheet. But this one also then takes the time that I put up here, and it calculates what was my average pace for the week. I can put in my average heart rate for each run, and it'll calculate what my average heart rate was for the week, how many minutes I've run. I've put in here for my own benefit, translating miles to kilometers, as some of my running friends online that I follow, they always talk in kilometers. So this way I'm training my mind to understand maybe a different way to think of my running in terms that they're talking about, and do some comparisons. I can also do my own custom graphs. I've got one here that kind of shows you how my running was trending. This orange line here represents last year. These were the previous 5 years, and again, it just demonstrates that it's been a struggle for me the past decade. I've got similar charts in another spreadsheet here that summarizes before. All right, what I'd like to do now is show you 3 examples of online tools that I currently use. I've used a variety of these over the years, and I'm sure there's many of them out there. And I'd really be curious, for those of you who are watching, if you use a particular online tool or method or website to track data points. Mention that in the comments. I'd be curious, and I think many of those watching may find something that they can look into that suits their needs, and also share what you like about it. The first one I want to show you here is called MapMyRun. I believe that Under Armour is the owner of this that puts it out there. They have, like many of these sites, they have the free version and a subscriber, for a small fee, either monthly or annually. You can get additional functionality, different tools, etc. Currently I use the free version of all these, but I believe in this particular case, I think for $6 a month or $30 a year, I can get some added functionality. I think they call that Go MVP. So if I look here, you'll see here's the things that you can get for free. I won't spend a lot of time going into this, but with a paid subscription, you can see you get all kinds of additional tools and functionality. You can check that out if you're interested in more. But what this does, amongst other things, it gives me, here's what I'm doing for the month as far as distance, duration, calories, and how many workouts. You'll see what those workouts were. I can click on them and get more information. If we click on one here, you'll see some data points here. You'll see some other information in here about my run, and some other charts here. I can even turn this on to see my heart rate. A thing to note here is I've been using this tool since 2009, on and off, probably more consistently the past 5 years. And most of that time, I have created in here, one of the tools that you can do in here is actually go to routes and create routes, and then you can map out on the maps various routes and save them. And then when you run that route, you can say, hey, I ran this route, enter in your details, like what your time was, and it'll calculate for you the pace, etc. You can see this graph. It won't have this information here or these charts down here per se. At least not the heart rate, and probably not the pacing, but it will show you the elevation, so you would probably see something like this available to you. But as I mentioned, I bought a Garmin or a smartwatch last summer that has GPS capabilities. It has heart rate monitor tracking capabilities, and this particular platform allows you to sync up with that smart device and upload that information, and that's why I can see here what my pace per mile was, the elapsed time, and I have some of these other options for comparisons here to really look at. So that's pretty nice. I can go in here and edit this. The main reason I would want to edit is maybe I want to give it a specific name. I might want to put in some notes down here, which is what I've done. So those options are available to you on this tool. Just to kind of show you, if I go back here to last month, at the end of the year, you'll see this is a fuller month, if you will. So I ran 23 times. Pretty consistent there. It's one of my goals, is to be consistent. I came here because I wanted to show you, if I go to December 2019, one of the other things you can do on here is, say you go to the gym, or you're hitting the weights in the garage or in the basement or elsewhere, or if you're doing yoga or going for, you do cycling as well, or swimming, you're training for a triathlon. You can use this tool. I think it color codes the different types of workouts on the same calendar, so you can kind of see the fuller picture. It's not just a running tool, but it can be used for multi-sport, multi-activity. So that's something to consider, to check out. It also has some community-related stuff where you connect with friends that you know. You can look at an activity feed where you can read what other people are doing. They can read what you're doing. And there's even some challenges that they offer from time to time. I'm going to talk about the challenges along with some other things that some of these other sites offer in a future video, as I share ideas to help us stay motivated That's one of the goals of the channel. Some of these challenges on this particular platform can serve as motivational tools, which are really nice. The next site I'm going here is Garmin Connect. The smart device I bought is a Garmin. It's an entry-level device. And like many of these device manufacturers, many of them have their own site with their own tools that you can use for free for purchasing one of their devices. Some of them may even have added features for a small fee. I haven't really looked into that here for the Garmin. I'm just basically using what's here. My primary use for this site currently is when I finish my run, I upload to this site, and this has connections to other platforms. Like I can connect this feed when it uploads to send it to MapMyRun. I can send it to Strava, which I'm going to show you next. But similarly, I can click on one of these and edit it. I can put notes in here. I can attach pictures from that particular run here to, kind of blog, if you will, your run. So you have some of that functionality calculated into here. If you have GPS, again, with a lot of these devices, you have that. So this kind of maps it out for you. You can even come down here and click play, and it'll actually, follow this thing through and track my run for the day. That's kind of nice. As it's going along, you can even see how it changes along elevation mapping, pacing, heart rate, your cadence, how many steps per minute. You can kind of see how you're doing on that, track that. That's another data point we didn't really talk about in the intro, but it's one that you can look at. I've started to pay a little bit more attention to this, and I've noticed over the past 6 months, as I've tried to learn to slow down, shorten my stride a bit, as someone who has historically probably been overstriding, and so as I shorten that, I'm monitoring how comfortable I am with that shorter stride and how I'm improving my turnover. I've actually improved my turnover by about 6 steps per minute thus far, so improvement. But again, it speaks to the value of these tools. They allow you to measure and then use them to evaluate how you're progressing towards your goals, or how you're just progressing in your running in general. The last tool I want to show you here is an extremely popular one, and it interfaces with a lot of different platforms, and one that is fairly new to me and is quite honestly probably my favorite at the moment. And this also has a pay model, so I can subscribe for, I think it's $7.99 per month, or if you pay for it on an annual basis, you can get it for $5 a month or $60 for the year. And there's a lot of additional analysis and tools and functionality that you can get, and that's something I'm considering maybe doing later on. But currently I'm only using the free version. You can set up your own profile. You can see how many people you're following, so you can follow individuals running in here. And if you'd like to follow me on Strava, you're more than welcome. In the show notes, you can click on the link there to find me on Strava. I've actually captured 121 activities in the past 6 months on here. I can click on this, and it's basically almost a table type format that kind of, you can find a particular run. I think there's some filtering up here, so if you use some sort of consistency as far as your types of runs that you're doing, you can maybe filter out certain ones like long run or trail run or something along those means. But you can click on it here, and you'll see the same data that you would if you clicked on one on the dashboard on that first page I showed you. You can kind of see here the notes that I put in there. Some basic information here. You can see what shoes, so it says I used this pair of shoes, and I've currently got 316 miles on there. So you can kind of, like I mentioned in the intro, you can measure or monitor how many miles you're putting on a pair of shoes, so you know when you need to potentially replace them. Come down here, you can see the mapping of it, the breakdown here. There's also some functionality here. This is currently showing pace, heart rate, and cadence. But really my intent here that I really wanted to show you today is, one, I think first off, capturing data points around your running, whether it be distance related, time related, heart rate related, You need to take some time to really think about what type of information will be valuable to you, so you can evaluate your own training towards reaching your own goals, or just staying healthy and staying consistent and staying injury free. I'd really like to encourage you to share in the comments, if you haven't already, what, if anything, you use, what information you capture that you find most useful, or if you currently aren't doing any of that, maybe share what type of information did you learn from this video that you found most helpful. I'd very much be interested in hearing from you. And again, please consider liking or subscribing to the channel. That certainly helps spread the word. And I'm really grateful that you listened in and we got to spend time together. So now, the moment some of you may have been waiting for, I mentioned at the end of this video. If you stuck around, I'll tell you how you can get a free template that I showed you from my spreadsheet. So if you email me, and I'll put the email address here on the screen, but if you email me at bkskeeprunning@gmail.com, I will send you the Excel template there. If you have Excel, you can use that, or if you want to use Google Sheets, I think it will work there as well. But I'd love to hear from you, so drop me a line, and until then, stay safe and keep running.